So welcome to Who Gives a Vote. This is our very first federal election episode. We have George Seymour. George, welcome to the podcast. You excited about being involved with us over the next, 26 days?
Absolutely. It's now very interested in this election. It's good to be on the show.
Awesome. And we have Carly Hahn. Thank you for joining us. You are you're normally behind the camera. Now you've moved to the front because you shouldn't be so intelligent. That's the problem, isn't it?
That was my mistake.
Yep, absolutely. And Satira, you're normally here, but you're not, so you've got a proxy in Jazara Taylor.
That I do.
So would you like us to call you Satira or Jazara?
I think Satira is only fitting.
Yep, okay. We're not going to call you Satira, but a big shout out to Satira, who's not even watching now, but she's out camping, so she's away. Hopefully we'll see her next week, unless you really enjoy it and you want to say you're looking forward to it.
You take a spot.
Yeah, you take a spot. Yep. So I guess this is the lineup for this week's episode. I'm Stuart Taylor. We've got George Seymour, Carly Hahn, and Jazara Taylor. We're excited to be here and talk. The areas that I guess we're focusing on, George, is Hinkler, Wide Bay, and Flynn. That makes up, I guess, the catchment that is Wide Bay, isn't it?
Yeah, and I should just say, a lot of my life is about trying not to get into trouble. I do have a couple of disclosures of interest.
Yes, that's right. Yes. I was trying to avoid them.
Yes, yeah. I've been a member of the Australian Labor Party for most of my life, so that's a disclosure of interest. And I am the mayor of the Fraser Coast Regional Council, and nothing I say tonight should be interpreted as representing the official view of the Fraser Coast Regional Council. It's
funny, I've known you for a long time. I always thought you were a national member, but did you know that he was a Labor member?
Look, I had some suspicions.
Me too. George, thank you for, it's interesting that you could have easily have decided to say no to participating in democracy and having a community chat because of those very things. But the fact that you're here and you're willing to have a chat, I think is fantastic. So we were talking about Hinkler, Wide Bay and Flynn, is that right?
Yeah, those are, I'm not sure why you include Flynn. I guess, Flynn's north of Bundaberg, but that's a very interesting seat.
Well, it's part of Burnett, isn't it?
Like the Wide Bay Burnett, and also, I guess, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a little bit out, like it's not what we commonly would refer to as, I guess, the Wide Bay, which we always see as Wide Bay and Hinkler. Mm-hmm. But I thought for this exercise, it's good to include them. They're a regional Queensland seat and probably have the same issues that we do. Mm-hmm. Carly, you were going to go through some key dates, is that right?
I am. I've got those up on the screen.
Yep.
All right, so the 2025 federal election, the important election dates are the 31st of March, writs are issued. The 7th of April, which is today, the electoral rolls close, and that's at 8 p.m. for anyone who hasn't registered yet.
Get in quick if you haven't enrolled.
The 10th of April, nominations close. The 11th of April, the candidates are declared. The 22nd of April, early voting opens. The 30th of April, postal vote applications close. And the 3rd of May is Election Day, which is 26 days away.
So, George, this is a question for you. Hoping that that you understand. You did your civics homework when you were at what school did you go to?
QUT.
When you went to QUT as a school?
Oh no, law school. No,
law school. Yeah, you probably don't want to say what school you went to, do you? That would get in the way of your Labor brand. Or
Anglican Church Grammar School.
Yeah, Churchy.
Better known as Churchy. Yeah.
Yeah. So you went to Churchy. Let's see if you understand your civics. What does it mean when the writs are issued?
Yeah, well, it's Section 32 of the Constitution. That is about the Governor General in consultation with the Executive Council, basically putting out the paperwork, which have all those details about the dates and, just setting up the election.
It's important, isn't it?
It is, it's fundamental.
Can't have an election without it.
No.
So, Jazara, we did talk about the nominations closing and the electoral rolls. You're registered to vote, but you're going to miss out on this election because Anthony Albanese called it a couple of days before your 18th birthday.
That he did.
That's outrageous, isn't it?
That's so rude.
Can we get Anthony on the phone and see if we can try and...
We'll try and line that up for next week.
A bit, please.
Yeah, or can they change it to 17?
17 and 11 months.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds close enough.
Yeah, that's right. So I guess, and it's probably hard for you to, I guess, articulate being in the fact you've not considered elections much, other than you've been around me and I love elections, so you might have some very strong views, which you do. But from your perspective, what do you think about when you think about elections and politics from your perspective?
Straight off the bat, when I think about elections, I get a sick, anxious feeling in the pit of my stomach.
Yeah, me too.
I'm not particularly fond of them.
Why is that?
Well, I have a history, see. My father was a politician, and it wasn't fun, elections.
Okay, yep. They did take a lot of time, didn't
Handing
they?
out flyers.
Yep, I went door to door, handing out flyers. Pretty sure we started the electric scooter trend here.
I think we did.
Before they
No.
were legal.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, before they were legal. I think one night, about 7 o'clock on a Saturday night, you were helping me deliver pamphlets, and you might have crashed the scooter and caused yourself some grief.
Well, give me more credit here. I didn't crash it. Someone else had been on it previously before me and broken it and not told us.
Yes.
And the whole thing fell apart underneath me.
A big shout out to Tay Scott, who wrecked the scooter and we had to buy a new one. Fantastic. Yes. So other than that, what else do you think about?
That I actually don't know anything about the MRI.
Okay. All right. So you but what do you think about when you think about politics? Like, so it's just your personal experience.
Part of me is relieved that I don't have to vote yet, because I don't have to look too closely into it. But then another part of me is actually quite disappointed, because I do have a lot of strong viewpoints, and I'm looking forward to being able to choose, I guess, a leader in my community who aligns with those views.
I think the fact that you're 18 and you are taking on the responsibility in your mind, saying, yes, I need to look into this, I think that's great.
It's very important, and I think a lot of young people sort of disregard how important it is in their local communities, but I see a lot of discourse online where they're outraged, and then when it comes to actually voting, most of them aren't even enrolled to vote. So I think it's very important that young people enroll to vote and show an interest in their local politicians.
Very good, very good. I agree. We did talk about early voting. It's now a part of the process, isn't it,
It's
Carly?
a huge part of the process now.
How's that changing campaigns and how they're run in the regions?
Not being a politician myself, but having worked with a couple, I imagine the percentage is up around 40% now of early voting. In 2022, Hinkler were, on the first 4 days of voting, had the highest percentage of early voting of anywhere in the country. So Hinkler, at least, is a seat that likes to go out and vote early.
You mean in the last federal election?
Yes, 2022,
Yep.
yeah. So I imagine that means for politicians, when they're running campaigns, their campaign managers have to be organised and hit the floor running. Like, they've got to go straight up. It can't be a last-minute scramble to get all of your materials, get all your volunteers, and just organise how you're going to run your campaign.
Yep. So talking about Hinkler, we do actually have candidates, and I should preface the fact that nominations close on the 10th of April, don't they,
That's what
George?
we've just heard.
Yep, and so therefore these could actually change. Did you want to go through them with us?
Yeah, so there's obviously no incumbent. At the moment, we don't have a member of parliament. We haven't had for a little while now, because Keith Pitt resigned and is now the ambassador to Italy and the Holy See, which is a remarkable job. David Batt, former state MP and former councillor in Bundaberg. I think he was the deputy mayor as well. He's the LNP candidate. Trish Mears is the Labour candidate. Andrew McLean, the Greens. Tyler Carman, One Nation, and Kerry Petrus, Family First. I think that's all we're aware of at the moment. Hinkler's, an interesting seat. It is quite, dates back quite a bit of time, but we really became interested in it in 2007 when there was quite a big redistribution, and we got grouped in with Bundaberg into Hinkler.
And Gladstone.
Yeah, it became
Gladstone
Flynn. Before that, we were part of Wide Bay. So Wide Bay was Gympie, Maryborough, and Harvey Bay, which made sense. And then from 2007, it's been this really eccentric seat of Noosa, Gympie, and Maryborough, which represents all strands of...
So that's the Wide Bay one.
Yeah, Wide Bay,
And then Hinkler is the Harvey Bay and Bundaberg.
Yeah.
And that's the feedback I get a lot of is from people when they talk about the federal elections. They don't like the makeup of Bundaberg and Harvey Bay. I have a strong connection between Harvey Bay and Bundaberg, so it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I understand the Bundaberg area because I work out of there half the time of my week. So for me, there isn't as big of a disconnect, but people do, because of local government, feel more connected to a Maryborough than a Bundaberg. So it is a bit of a strange seat.
That's right. And it really got accentuated with the Hinkler regional deal, because that really, Hinkler is about finding, what are there, 110,000 voters and grouping them together. It's not a cohesive community, Bundaberg and Harvey Bay.
Yeah, absolutely. That did create a bit of a strange relationship between Bundaberg and Harvey Bay when the councils were vying for that Hinkler deal money, and there was some to and fro. But talking about Keith Pitt stepping down, does that change the fact that this is an LNP safe seat?
No. Not if you ask Sportsbet and the betting agencies. No. TAB have actually suspended betting on the Liberal Party, the LNP candidate now in Hinkler. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they won't take any money on him.
Yep. And I guess the thing is, if you looked at Keith Pitt, he wasn't as well known as a candidate before he ran for the seat of Hinkler as the National Party member.
Yeah.
But David Batt is very well known, highly regarded. He has a history of being connected particularly to Bundaberg. He speaks well. He's a pretty decent kind of guy. He's probably better positioned than, say, a Keith Pitt, who took over from Paul Neville when he did. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. David Batt has a much higher profile than Keith Pitt did in 2013. Absolutely,
yeah. But, Trish Mears can't be underestimated too. She's got a strong, I guess, a social and a community connection to Bundaberg, not so much in Harvey Bay.
Mm-hmm. And, talk about it being a safe seat. And last time, Labour held it was Brian Cordes, in the time of Bob Hawke, when it was Gladstone and Bundaberg, which, feels like a Labour community. But looking at it now, it's not out of the question. I mean, there have been times when there's been a majority of people that have voted Labour. I mean, you go back to the 2001 state election, Labour won Burnett.
Yeah.
Trevor Strong beat Doug Slack. And obviously Labour has recently held Harvey Bay and still holds Bundaberg. One of the few places in the state where an incumbent Labour candidate, Tom Smith, increased his majority. So there was a swing to Labour in the Bundaberg state seat. I mean, he's got more than an 8-vote margin now.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's
out of the question.
But Queenslanders have a history going back to Beattie of voting Labour at a state level and then voting Liberal at a federal level.
Yep. Which reminds me, you brought up Bob Hawke, and I noticed you've got the Lady Elliot Island water bottle there. I'm just not sure I want it to get, wrecked on the table. So I do have this Bob Hawke lager.
Yeah,
there you go. Use that one there. How's that feel?
Very good.
Yep. All right, let's move on to the candidates of Flynn.
Yeah, so Colin Boyce, the sitting LNP member, Helen Medell, Labour, David Harris, One Nation, Peter Dorian, Family First, Lance Price, People First. Now that's the, if people haven't heard about, that's associated with Jared Rennick, the former Liberal senator, now running as an independent.
He visited here on the weekend too, didn't he?
Yeah. I got it right, Jared Rennick?
Yeah.
Yep. Peter Zunker, Trumpets, that's associated with Clive Palmer and loosely we're supposed to believe associated with Donald Trump, I presume, from the name.
How does it make you feel, Jazara, knowing that there is now a political party in Australia that is representing all the views of their great spiritual leader, Donald Trump? The
youth have spoken.
You're not a fan of Donald Trump?
No, not at all.
Okay.
And then Paul Bambrick Green. So if this was a state election where it is Is it still at a state election? No, they changed that, didn't that? To
Uh,
compulsory. Yeah,
yeah.
if this was a state election, 10, 12 years ago, Labour would be looking at that pretty well. They'll be sort of seeing that as an opportunity because so many of those are conservative candidates.
It's not splitting their vote.
Yeah, LNP, One Nation, Family First, People First, Trumpets. That would split the vote, the conservative vote, widely. If they and Labour would be telling people to just vote one.
Yeah.
But it's compulsory preferential at a federal and a state level now. They always change. And so presumably all those will channel back into Colin Boyce's tally.
For the record, I have truncated the trumpet of Patriots to trumpets because it couldn't fit on the page, not because I treat them with contempt, although I do. I hate to give
Show
away
any bias,
but I don't think we need USA politics in Australian politics. We
don't think USA need USA and USA politics at the moment.
Not at all. I guess you've mentioned that, George. But what do we think about the fact that does having like the trumpet of Patriots affect this type of seat, which is a bit of a swinging seat based on preferences?
I don't think so. Colin Boyce himself is to the right of the LNP. He's in the right side. I think he appeal. And it's interesting. Flynn it's largely Gladstone, which will be one of the safest state Labour seats. Apart from all the time that Liz Cunningham was able to hold it. It is a very Labour solid area, but then obviously to capture that amount of voters, Flynn has to go out way into some mining areas where there'll be strong Labour votes, but also a lot of the North Burnett. So I just think the Trumpets, I wouldn't think they'll get more than 2%. People First and Family First, between they're not going to get many votes. Colin Boyce, that's where the Conservative vote will go, and then to One Nation as well.
So let's look at Wide Bay, which is our, I guess, better connected to the Hinkler area for us, and particularly for you because you are the mayor of, I guess, Maryborough and areas that are a part of that Wide Bay as well as Hinkler.
Yeah, I saw Lou O'Brien just last week at a citizenship ceremony. He's the incumbent LNP, Emma Boos, Greens, Chad Burgess, One Nation, Kirsty Kenningale for Family First, Gabrielle Pennicott, who has been in the news a bit, for Trumpets, Elliot Chalmers for Labour. He's got a very strong Labour last name, and Casey Idun, Independent. I've seen him advertise a bit on social media.
You do notice that I asked you to call out all these names.
Yeah.
There was a strategic reason for that. I didn't want to have to try and pronounce some of them, but hopefully we got there. One of the things I want to bring up about now that we're talking about the candidates, and for me it feels deceptive that we have in the state, you have the Liberal National Party, which is a coalition of Liberals and Nationals, but in a federal sense, you either sit with the Liberals or you sit with the Nationals. You're a National in, for example, right now, Keith Pitt, when he was the federal member, was a National party person. I personally don't think you should be allowed to run as a Liberal National.
And then sit as National. It's an interesting question too, because if they went down as that as an LNP, they would be the biggest subgroup in the coalition and automatically entitled to, say, the Deputy Prime Minister. But you don't think of it right now because the leader is Peter Dutton from Dixon in Queensland, and the leader of the Nationals is David Littleproud from Maranoa. So if they won, you'd be Prime Minister.
It's the safest seat in Australia.
Yeah, so the two of them would be Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister, so they wouldn't bring it up now. But in other times when the leader's been from Sydney and the deputy leader from, say, Victoria, or they sort of put, you heard rumblings that, well, the LNP should just sit as the LNP and then automatically get the deputy leadership. And but yeah, it's all about what happened. And you think after a while it would have been grandfathered and they would just sit as Liberals down there.
It doesn't. To me, if you are running as a National, you should have National on your. That gives people an understanding of how right you are. National is on the right to Liberal, so
yeah.
I think it's fair for people to make a vote and a decision based on the party that they're going to sit with. I think, to me, that's fair. I don't understand. I think you're probably right. They should sit as a separate entity, shouldn't they?
Yeah, the amalgamation was always so hard for them with Lawrence Springborg back then. I mean, it created it was all about Queensland politics. It created this massive complication at the federal level. I don't know if there's any way around it, given the National Party it's not really a national group. I mean, there wouldn't be many Tasmanians, but it is a Victorian, New South Wales and in Queensland party.
Yep. So what do you think?
The same thing would perhaps happen with the CLP from the Northern Territory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably true, yeah. So what do you think are the big issues that are coming out of for this election from a federal point of view?
What's coming out and what actually is coming out are two different things. I think it's going to be cost of living and housing. I think they're going to be the two hot button issues on voters' minds. But what's coming out policy-wise regarding those and whether that aligns with what voters are looking for, that's another thing.
So some of the things that have been identified from some of the concerns that have already been raised, I'll just put it up here for a moment. Is that it there? So you said cost of living, housing availability. Youth crime is always one that is coming up. Roads and infrastructure, health and aged care. I think aged care is going to be significant as the demographics change, and if we make decisions around immigration that'll stop that workforce from growing to support the people as they age. That's going to be a big issue. Which of those do you see as being, so Jazara, which of those sort of resonates to you, or is there something else that resonates to you?
I would say currently at the moment the thing that most concerns me is the cost of living.
Yeah.
Knowing that it's going to be so difficult for me to ever move out of home. Not that I want to move out of home in any rush, but the housing crisis, and there's so hard to get rentals, it's so expensive, and food is so expensive, petrol prices are so expensive, the cost of living is skyrocketing, and it's a struggle, especially for young people who are sort of just come out of school and we're trying to find our path in life, and then you're just hit with the fact that, oh hey, you can't afford any of this.
And you have come out of school, and your parents, horrible parents, I might add, have now made you more accountable, and you've got to start paying for things yourself. How does that make you think when you look at the cost of fuel, the cost of running a car, looking after horses and the food, and going out, you go shopping and you buy food that's very healthy. Have you noticed that it's quite expensive?
It is. The really only affordable food you can get is quite not necessarily great for you. Very processed stuff, like noodles. 2-minute noodles, that's the go-to, but it's very expensive living like a healthier lifestyle, especially, I think.
Absolutely. Carly, what screams out to you, not as an issue that the community is talking about, but is your number one issue up there?
To me, it's probably health, I think, health and aged care. My parents are starting to get up into the 70s now, so that's obviously something that's going to impact me directly. And with a ageing population, and like you said, a limited amount of young taxpayers being able to support that ageing population, but also health. Health hasn't, staffing, funding, and everything hasn't kept up with demand, particularly in our area. In our area, I believe.
Yeah. And George, from your perspective, as a parent and a husband and someone who lives in a regional area rather than the mayor, what are some of the things that stand out to you?
I think it's about, as Jazara said, it's cost of living, it's housing. And you see that in what they're doing. I mean, they're talking about price gouging in the supermarket, about different issues with rental affordability. And even the posturing. I saw there was one candidate today who was saying that she was a renter, not mentioning that she owns 2 houses.
She's rent vesting.
Yeah. So like, they definitely want. They don't you don't want if you're a campaign manager and your candidate, had 2 houses, and was benefiting from, the massive increases in rent, you wouldn't want them saying that. And that's why I think she said she's a renter, because technically she is, but just leave out the bit how she also owns houses. They want, it is the number one issue, I think, for many, many people, is housing affordability, homelessness, the threat of homelessness, and the cost of living.
It even affects people of my age and where I'm at in life, is that you're almost scared to want to go to the market to sell a house, because you don't know if you're going to be able to find one that is, that's affordable.
Can I say another one that concerns me?
Yep.
I have seen... Okay. I went to school for my primary years in school, and then I left school to be homeschooled because I didn't really cope well in the education system. But one of the things that I have found sort of confronting and a little bit upsetting is that I'll see these people now who I went to school with in primary school, and I'll see them being arrested, and I'll see them going in joyrides in these cars that they've stolen. And I find that very sad, because these are people that I played house with them, and I went on play dates with them, and then I see them getting arrested and doing these things, and I know their families and where they come from, and I think that the youth crime rate and how much it's skyrocketed lately is a large concern for me, and it really makes me sad seeing all of the people that I knew, I guess, who sort of fall down that path, and it just makes me wonder what's going on in that system that is failing them.
And the reality about it, it's a really easy election issue to debate. It's a really hard problem to fix, because it's not just about crime, as in how we respond to crime and adult crime, adult time, those sorts of slogans. It's about, well, how were they raised?
Mm-hmm.
What was their surroundings when they went to school? What exposure? What support did they get?
Early intervention programs.
Yeah, so it's a bigger issue, isn't it, than a federal or even a state or a local government issue, isn't it? But I mean, where does federal politics land in relation to youth crime?
Yeah, there's outside of the politics, there isn't much space for it. No.
Yeah, because it is, by our constitution, crime falls under the state purview, but there has to be. My mum used to always say to me that if you wanted to see a great example of a community, look at the people at the
most
bottom,
vulnerable.
the most vulnerable, the people that are struggling. If they prosper, if they're okay, our community is better. And I think that when you start seeing people in those positions, Jazara, that's when you need to start saying, well, this has to be fixed. No blame, just some solutions.
Well, I feel like the one line is coming back on Chris Foley already. I already see it in the comment section on social media. People are already like, adult crime, adult time, what's going on? So he's already copying it, and that's what happens when you reduce something to one sentence.
Yeah, you can get elected.
You can get elected.
But you can easily lose an election because you didn't honour a commitment rather than talk about the complexities. Now, there's no question that David Christofouli would have a passion to see our community safe, but it's more than just punishing people. Let's move on, because I want to talk about the Trumpet of Patriots, which is a new, I guess, tint into the federal politics. I want to read something to you, if I can. It's their statement on their website. Federal government is bloated and wasteful. Unelected, overpaid bureaucrats must not be allowed to push their personal ideologies on the Australian people. We will drain the swamp. Could that have been taken from Donald Trump's X post, you reckon?
Absolutely, yeah.
They've just put it in ChatGPT and
just add in the deep states.
Yeah. The thing that frustrates me is that we attack, we call them bureaucrats, but they're people that work, they're community servants. They work in a system that, they didn't create, but a lot of them, so many of them are passionate about their work. and they don't push their personal ideologies. What they do is they're pushing the ideologies of the government, of the views of the government.
Of the day.
Yeah. Obviously, if you're in social justice, you'll have a social justice, slant. But is this a fair thing to say about our public servants?
Yeah, absolutely not. No.
Yeah.
It's trying to appeal to the same sort of political wave that Donald Trump appealed to so well. It's more difficult in Australia where we have compulsory voting. So, in America, you're trying to energize and fire up your base. And you only need to, you get 28% of the population or something to win. Whereas in Australia, everyone votes, hopefully, presumably. That means you've got to appeal more to the middle, in the mainstream.
And what's the alternative? Consultants?
That's
How much is that going to cost?
Yeah, well, they want to get rid of consultants, and if you look at their ideology on Doge, which is very much a USA Elon Musk concept, which I don't think anyone here they've said.
Although Jacinta Price her name's been put forward for Australian Doge. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, they're talking about the waste, $450,000 a year on Welcome to Country, $600 million for PNG NRL team, $500 million on the Voice referendum, and $174 million on Labor advertising. Look, you can go through a few of those. The one I want to pick out, which I think is absolute rubbish, and it must be a typo, $600 million. So to get, let's put this into context. They're saying it's cost the federal government more money to get a PNG NRL team into the competition than it did to run the Voice referendum. That's just insanity.
And I have seen that figure bandied around in comment sections a lot, the 600 million for the PNG NRL team. I've seen that a lot. So either people are parroting it from talking notes.
Well, it's the honest figure is, and it's not, they've indicated an intention to support it, and that intention could be somewhere between the $1 and $5 million. And it's not the PNG team; it's a NRL support overall. Now, I'm a football A-League supporter, so I don't mind them spending that much money on sport, but I'd like them to spend it on football.
I think
the A-League.
The Host Plus Cup is all the better for having a Papua New Guinea Hunters.
Absolutely.
They came to Maryborough to play against the Wynnum Manly Seagulls. I think it really helps the rugby league competition. If we can have a PNG team in the Queensland League, I reckon we can have one in the NRL.
And
Absolutely.
Sport's one of those things that brings people together, brings nations together.
It's important for us as a country to have
fabric.
a healthy Papua New Guinea.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been thinking that a bit lately, that, in terms of, global politics, Queensland really does need to lift our sort of relationship with Papua New Guinea in so many different ways.
Yeah, and if you see like some of the conflict that has occurred and how that's impacted our community, where there are a lot of Papua New Guinean people in Queensland, beautiful people who, I shouldn't say beautiful people, sound like Donald Trump, beautiful people, but they're wonderful, lovely people, and they're a part of our community, and they're our closest,
a very close neighbour.
Yeah, so we should be making sure that they're in a good place and support them and try and build relationships with them for sure. Is this party a joke? Like is the trumpet like sure? Or is Clive?
It's very hard to take them seriously when you see the amount of. I mean, he does this every election. The amount of billboards they put up.
I counted 5 between the Hervey Bay onto the highway on the Bruce and the Gold Coast 2 weekends ago. 5 trumpets.
Yeah, I mean, you
billboards.
can guarantee that the ratio of dollars spent to votes, earned, will be way out of whack to any other candidate or political party. Like. To be putting up that amount of billboards, to be running TV ads on like all the time for what,
Yeah, he's got more money than sense, but that's just, I mean, I'm pretty biased. I've got to try and pull that bias back. But certainly I don't even understand it. I think it's I personally think it gets in the way of democracy. I think it creates divides where there doesn't need to be divides. We're talking about, we're attacking bureaucrats, we're coming up with false figures, and they can get away with it because no one holds them to account. and that I find that very, very frustrating. But
Well, that's
moving,
the truth in political
Yeah.
advertising.
Yeah.
That
yeah,
And it's just weird advertising. Like I had to ask, because you see the billboards, it's him and this other guy. And somebody told me it's Tucker Carlson.
it's Tucker
Yeah, Tucker
Carlson.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Yep.
I don't know
Yep.
who Tucker. Like I just know he's one of those guys on Fox News.
Yep.
That's a big deal in the U.S.
but he'll say that the people that he's pushing towards would know who Tucker Carlson is. You
Exactly.
wouldn't,
That's
because-
his target market.
So,
But we don't have that. We don't
yeah.
have that. We don't have that large population like the US does, and then we don't. We have compulsory voting, so the movement of a smaller demographic doesn't carry as much impact as say in the US.
Yeah.
Yep. Did you vote in the last US election?
No, never voted in the U.S. elections.
You never have.
No,
Could you?
I guess so. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting.
No, I'm Australian. I've sort of, I don't feel like I should be entitled to. I've lived here most of my life.
Yep. And talking about being Australian and talking about it from a holistic perspective, we've got two leaders, really, you could say three, but there's two people vying for the Prime Ministership, Anthony Albanese and Peter Dutton. Jazara, what do you think of those two? And bear in mind we are going live, and you you have to have some objectivity to you, a little bit more than I have maybe. She's my daughter though, she probably will say what she thinks. What do you think? Peter Dutton or Anthony Albanese? Where do you see it at the moment, right at the beginning of the election? What's your thoughts?
I think anyone who votes for... Look, I can't say that, can I?
No, but you can say what you think.
If I ever voted for Peter Dutton or anyone like him, I would want you to either shoot me in the head or send me to an insane asylum.
Well, none of those things will happen. So you're not a fan of Peter Dutton?
Not particularly, no.
Well, that's very interesting. And I've got nothing to do with it. I happen to... No, that's not true. I like Anthony Albanese. I remember him talking at the local government conference in Canberra, and he got a standing ovation from Conservatives and also progressives. Is that the right term in Australia? And he spoke very well. He came from a hard background and has really done well for himself and has really been a good servant. Whether or not you support that type of politics is a matter for yourself, but I personally think that Anthony Albanese is on the right track to taking on the as the next leader, or continue on as the leader of the country.
I'm
George,
just hoping he's just just slightly more courageous in his second term.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would be surprised. I mean, if you look at historically, it would be unusual for Peter Dutton to beat him. I mean, you look back at the amount of times that, first of all, you got to go back almost a century before there was a one-term government. James Scullin for the ALP held it from 1929 to 1932. So you'd have to go back that far before you get to a one-term government. If you look at, when opposition leaders have become, so I mean, we're very used to just a prime minister coming from becoming treasurer and becoming prime minister with, all the started with Rudd and Gillard and then through the LNP. But, if you look at the opposition leaders who've been elected prime minister, obviously Albanese in 2022, before that, Tony Abbott in 2013. And, you can say what you want to say about Tony Abbott, but he was an extremely efficient and effective and consequential opposition leader. I don't
he's
think
very good in opposition.
Yeah, I don't think Peter Dutton has replicated the effectiveness of Tony Abbott as opposition leader. And then the next opposition leader before that was in 2007. Kevin Rudd was extremely effective as an opposition leader. He really held the zeitgeist of the moment. Before that, John Howard, and before that would have been Bob Hawke, who would have had huge name recognition as the leader of the ACTU and the opposition leader, even though I think he was only opposition leader for a matter of weeks or days before the election. So if you just look at the history of who's been able to go from opposition to be prime minister, Peter Dutton his name would stand out as quite different to those men. Unfortunately, it's all been men so far who've made that transition. So I just, looking at the history, I just don't, it would be quite an achievement for Peter Dutton to go against the grain of that history.
And look, the last couple of weeks have really changed numbers in regards to his odds. So
What are you hearing in relation to odds?
Well, when we first started having a bit of a chat on the 17th of May, Sportsbet were paying $1.90 each way. $1.90 for the ALP and LNP to make government. After the budget, and as of today, it's certainly changed. The LNP are paying $3 now, and the ALP $1.40.
Yeah. And I think Albanese's figured Dutton out. Like, I mean, that could have been a masterstroke for Dutton with a Darwin port and tearing up the Chinese contract. But I mean, Albanese got in there before
He
him.
announced first.
I mean,
That's it.
like and then to think about what's just happened over the last 24 hours. I mean, people really associated Peter Dutton with the work from home. You know, it wasn't fully understood. People didn't realize he was talking about a small amount of public servants. You know, it was just the message got out that work from home,
Generally.
what that means for so many families and how they balance all these family responsibilities, that he was seen on the wrong side of that question. And to put that out there, I mean, there's a incredible sort of piece by Joe Hillebrand, you know, tearing the LNP apart on what they've done in terms of handling it politically.
Which isn't usually his vein.
Yeah,
either.
that's right. To use you know, cluster F,
Yep.
and to you know talk about, you know, coalition strategic advisors, if that's what you could call them.
And the fact that Albo got in with his announcement in the Darwin port, like not even 24 hours, I don't think, in advance. Dutton got a good leaker?
Perhaps, yeah, they probably did, yeah. And so I mean, I just think that Albanese's won last few days of the campaign. He was already ahead. This work it's a total shooting himself in the foot. It's a real self-inflicted injury, the stuff from work from home. I think the headline is, you know, from WFH to WTF. Like, he's lost, Dutton's lost, you know, full couple of days on it. He's come out looking so much worse.
And he's always sold himself as being strong and assertive, but now he's flip-flopping on policy.
Yeah, I think the biggest one that will cause him the most grief for the longest will be his stance on defence and how he could use it as a negotiating tool for the 10% tariffs that Donald Trump has initiated on Australia. I think that is a reckless and stupid approach. Your defence, the idea that your defence is negotiable is horrendous, and there is no, you know, statesperson that would look at that and go, yeah, that's a great idea. That to me is nonsense.
The optics of that.
It's so dangerous because what you're saying is that in order to resolve a commercial matter, we're gonna debate.
Use our personal safety defence.
Yeah, defence is now. It doesn't make any sense to me. That's an egregious, terrible.
And the
step.
tariffs are hurting the American people more than it's hurting
absolutely.
everybody else.
So you have to treat them in isolation. He didn't, and even if he tries to unwind it now, I think that to me is a really bad misstep. Going back to local, a bit of history. This election, George, in the life of the Fraser Coast Sports Precinct. What have you heard about that?
Yeah, well, I think people probably seen the announcement by David Batt about basketball. You know, that just seems like a very small amount of money for just in a regional seat in Queensland, but it really, I think, represents a good turning point in our community. As you might be aware, Stuart, it used to be, the sports precinct used to be seen in kind of a toxic lens from in terms of local politics.
Oh, really? Yeah.
And so this
Very contentious.
And so while we have got money from the state government over the years for the clubhouses and a lot of the sporting equipment there, a lot of the facilities there, it's never been in the form of a political promise. It's always just been grants from departments and works for Queensland, et cetera. But so I think to actually have a political party, a political candidate, make a commitment for funding towards the sports precinct represents a real turning point in how it is seen in the community and to politicians.
And do you think that also helps because there is slightly less name recognition for him in the Hervey Bay region?
Look, I regardless of who did it, the fact that it's done shows you two things. One is that our community has moved on from thinking it's a bad thing. We see it. Jazara, you've been out there and played, and you actually injured your leg out there, didn't you? Or your foot?
I did.
You did. You had a bad injury, but I mean, to be able to play on those sorts of fields, people go out there. There's thousands and thousands of people that use those
It's-
facilities
It's
now.
future proofing for our agent.
Yeah, and I think that when David was probably doing some of the discussions, because the people that would be involved in those discussions would also be from the from Harvey Bay, that would have been very much a thing that they really would have pushed, because they believe that the sports precinct is something that we can build on, particularly now that we're talking about basketball. AFL potentially could go out there. It is becoming a multi-sport precinct that will serve our community
For
moving
years
forward.
to go.
So it's great
Yeah.
to see at least one person taking the cudgel.
Yeah, but talking about politics in sport, archery definitely will not go there.
And
The state government has been very, very firm that the Olympic archery will not be at the sports precinct.
Why is that?
Because it's the announcement it's going to be in Maryborough itself, not the electorate of Maryborough.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, at least no one will get shot.
How multi-sport are they thinking for the precinct?
Not equestrian. we have a state-of-the-art equestrian centre in Maryborough, and it's pretty good, isn't it?
It's incredible. I think it's the best in Queensland.
Yeah. So Maryboro's really got that going for it.
I'd like one closer to home though.
And we put that in our submission to the 100-day review, that we would be the ideal acclimatization and training centre for Olympic teams in the lead up to the Olympics.
Yeah, fantastic. So let's look ahead for next week, just quickly, if I've got that right. So we've got Glenn Winnie coming in on Thursday. I'm going to chat with him just about he's from the Fraser Coast Property Industry Association. He's also Director of Wind Projects. Thursday at 5:15 p.m, talking about what's important to the community from his perspective. And then we, Wednesday, April, so I've actually taken the date out, but it was next Wednesday?
Yeah, next Wednesday.
Not Valentine's Day.
Not 16th of April, is it? I think it's around that time. So next Wednesday, we're going to talk again. If you want to have something to say, get in contact with us. Jump on the Facebook page. Maybe we could invite you into the chat. Any final thoughts, Carly?
No, I don't have any final thoughts after first week of campaigning. I think it's going to be interesting.
Yep.
Let's see what happens.
Jazara, how have you enjoyed this process? Been a bit scary?
A little bit. It's been a bit. I feel a bit out of my depth here, but
I think you've done really well.
I think I'm looking forward to seeing Satira back on the podcast.
Fantastic. Do you have any final thoughts or anything that you've learnt or any value you got out of today?
No.
At least you're honest. And George, any final thoughts?
Just that I think it's going to be a good election for our region. We've had the Prime Minister visit several times now. He was in Harvey Bay after the floods, and then I think the first day on the election campaign he was in Bundaberg. We've had David Littleproud here, the leader of the National Party. He's been here as well. So I think we're going to have a lot of interest from the major political parties. So I'm looking forward to seeing the debates.
Awesome. And we'll see you next week. And Jazara, thanks for joining us. Maybe we'll get you back sometime.